Hey everybody, welcome to the Atheist Experience. We are live. It is Sunday, May 8th, 2016. I'm Matt Dillahunty. Joining me this week, John Iacoletti. Yay! Yay! There's actually an audience on the other side of the glass. You won't be able to hear them because I think we've fixed the gain issues on the microphone, so it doesn't pick up like raindrops on the roof now.
We need one of those applause signs though for the.
We need lots of signs. There's a number of things that we'll be doing. Like I want like an on-air thing. We've got a green screen for back here, but you know what? Just having books is good enough.
Books are cool.
I noticed though with the lights, like we used to be a public access show. We've talked before about our public access roots. We're now in our own building, and everything's gradually improving to the point where much of the technical aspects of the show are better than we could have ever had in the public access studio. But I see like this weird band of shadow where there's like light above and below. We are coming to you from out of the darkness. The darkness that is the dark heart of the atheist. No. So today's Mother's Day.
Yes.
And I managed to call my mother and my grandmother, my only remaining grandmother that I can call. And this past week was also, on Thursday was the National Day of Prayer, which means it was also the National Day of Reason. And I managed to make it out to the Capitol for about an hour or so to hang out with some of the folks who were involved with that. And by the way, the protest there, the National Day of Reason, is not necessarily a protest against prayer. You are free to pray to your heart's content. That's part of religious liberty. You can do that. You can even pray at the Capitol. You can even organize an event where you pray at the Capitol. However, there needs to be government neutrality, and so government officials in their official capacity shouldn't be endorsing particular religions or encouraging prayers. And what we're really talking about is a proper application of religious freedom that allows all individuals in society to be represented without bias, without favoritism towards a particular religion or group of religions. And the National Day of Reason is also an opportunity for us to point out that we would prefer that our elected representatives make decisions based on reason and not based on whatever personal relationship they think they have with some deity or the edicts of a particular religion. So, what you had thoughts on Mother's Day?
Yeah, I wanted to say Happy Mother's Day to all you mothers out there, or anyone who's ever been a mother, or anyone who's ever had a mother.
Which is everybody.
Happy Mother's Day. My mom's been gone for 24 years now, and I missed her a lot. We used to have great philosophical discussions. She later in life, she became a Unitarian Universalist minister. She considered herself a pan-entheist. So I was ranting and raving one day about something political. It might have been when George Bush elder said atheists shouldn't be considered citizens, and I was afraid that that was going to have some kind of weight in the government. She said, "We have separation of church and state. You have nothing to worry about." But
it turns out, by the way, that quote can't be sourced or identified, so there's no way to confirm that actually ever happened.
Yeah, I realize there's some controversy about that, but
yeah.
In any event, we were talking about that, and she said she didn't like the A word. That bothered her. She didn't really have any issue with me not believing, but she said, "Why do you want to call yourself an atheist?" She said, "Why don't you just?" My son had just been born not long before that, and she said, "Why don't you just take the love that you have for your son and call that God?" And I said, "I have a better idea, Mom. Why don't I call that the love I have for my son?"
Exactly.
So anyway, I'm remembering Mom today and missing her, and I want to say Happy Mother's Day to all of you out there.
And a lot of this comes up. I have a quote, an idea that Jen Peebles has represented many times. Your family, if you act like family. I'm of course grateful that my parents decided to have kids. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. But being thankful for that decision by them, or whether in some cases it's not a decision, it happens just because. But I'm not beholden to them in any way. I don't feel that because I am blood kin to someone that I necessarily owe them allegiance or respect. Or respect is, essentially earned. I love my parents in part because they love me, and in part because we have a good relationship and we get along. We disagree vehemently on the religion thing, and to their credit, they have not allowed that to be a massive barrier to our interactions. That's not the case for a lot of other atheists who have lost their family. And while it may be sad that you don't have the connection with your family because their religious views are preventing them from having, a relationship that is healthy with you, I think that there are cases where people are better off cutting people, including mothers and fathers, out of their life if that interaction is causing harm, if it's causing your life to be diminished. This idea that we need to be beholden to blood relatives is bizarre. I'd much rather have the family that I choose, and it just so happens that I choose, in many cases, the family that I am blood related to. So, I don't know if you had anything else to add, or if we just wanted to get right into calls.
Let's jump right in.
Sure. We've got Jeff. Thanks for waiting. Welcome to the Atheist Experience.
Hey, what's happening?
Not much.
Greetings from Augusta, Georgia.
Augusta, Georgia.
Howdy.
How's the weather in Augusta today?
It's beautiful. Beautiful Mother's Day.
All right.
And just, springtime is definitely breaking. Am I speaking with Matt?
Matt and John.
Okay, Matt. Okay, great. Hey, cool, man. This is awesome. I'm a little bit nervous. I have been listening to you guys or your show. I worked a job out here overnight, and as I'm driving through the night, I'm actually listening to you via YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, been pondering a lot of you guys' arguments and whatnot, listening to your various conversation. I've been a Christian for, I guess, since I was 10 years old, and I'm working on 50 at this point, so it's been most of my life. One of the things I hear a lot of atheists saying is that there's no evidence for God, and it's something that kind of really, as I begin to ponder, I'm sure you're aware of the premise in the scriptures for how it says that basically God created all things, the visible and the invisible.
Yeah.
And then it goes on in Romans.
Romans 1, yeah.
It puts forth the idea that, these things that he's created is the evidence.
Yeah, that's wrong. So to me, this is almost evidence that the God that the Bible points to is either an idiot or isn't being represented by the verse, because simply saying the visible and invisible things in the world are the evidence, or do testify to the existence of God, is fundamentally flawed. It cannot do what it purports to do. And I can't believe that there is a reasonable God who understands the nature of evidence and how we would go about establishing whether or not something is believable, who would say or encourage someone to say, yes, just look around at nature, the visible and invisible things are proof that I made it. Because it's not. I mean, it can't be.
Well, it doesn't. I don't think it specifically says it's proof. It's proof that he made it. But the idea is that everything that science investigates. Okay, for me, scientists should be the premier, I believe, evangelists for proving, to other people that God exists. Because according to, as I'm reading scripture, it's saying that if we are to investigate all the things that we can observe, it would reveal the person that made it. That's what the scriptures, that's the premise that it makes.
And the conclusion conclusion that you've reached, that, if the real world were in fact created by a God, and the evidence within reality were testified to that, the conclusion you've reached that scientists should be the biggest evangelists seems reasonable given that assumption, which means via a sort of reductio ad absurdum argument, we can show that because the majority of scientists aren't evangelists, and the majority of the elite scientists who understand these issues better than anyone are non-theists, don't believe in a personal God at all, what does that say about the God that you're buying into?
Okay, the other, I understand the point you're making that, okay, what I'm observing is there's a bunch of scientists that don't come away with that testimony. But the other part of the reality of our lives is that we're dealing with the hearts of men.
So what?
So what?
Why is it that when we talk about
Why
whether or not the Earth orbits the sun, we don't have to have a discussion about the hearts of men?
Well, ideally, it would be just on the face of it, either that's the truth or it's not, and we can just be honest with it, look at the observation, and bring forth a truthful testimony about whether it is or whether it isn't. But you and I both know, Matt, that dealing with people, we have to deal with the nature of people. People have agendas, okay?
Okay,
People
but
don't always-
isn't the nature of people completely irrelevant to whether or not there's a God?
It should be.
And wouldn't the nature
Okay.
of people also be irrelevant to whether or not there's sufficient evidence to justify belief in a God? I mean, isn't it God's
Okay,
response?
yeah.
If there's a God and he exists and he's provided evidence for his existence, then
Yes.
the biases of men are irrelevant as to whether or not there actually exists evidence to justify belief.
That would be nice, but that's not realistic, Matt.
No,
Come on, man.
no, I'm not. It's not just a matter of it being nice but not realistic. It would be if there was a God, this would be the case, and this is not the case, implying that either there isn't a God or there isn't a God who wants us to know there's a God.
He definitely wants us to know.
How do you know
And I
that?
believe
How do you know that? You just said he definitely wants us to know. How do you know that?
because it would be like you said, he'd be a dick, as you like to say often.
Okay, so how do you know that there? You just claimed that he definitely wants us to know, and your reason that you're definitely sure is that otherwise God would be a dick. You've already excluded another possibility, which is that he doesn't exist.
You assert that, but what I'm saying to you is
you just said it. How can you accuse me of asserting it when you just said that?
No, I'm just saying that in the past I've heard you say over and over that God's a dick for this, that, or the other. And
No,
what I'm saying to
I don't
you
think
is
he
that
exists. I'm saying that's one of the possibilities.
I'm sorry, what was the last thing you said?
I don't think he exists, so I don't think he's actually a dick, but that would be one of the possibilities. And I find it strange that you acknowledge that if there was a God who wanted us to know he existed, then there should be evidence for it. And you say you are definitely confident that there is a God who wants us to know he exists. And when I ask you how you know this, your only answer is because otherwise he'd be a dick. Is there some other way that you know this? Because that is not a way of knowing.
What I'm saying is that everything that he created is the evidence. So therefore,
No.
When we say,
Jeff,
hold on.
when you say everything he created is the evidence, you are assuming that he created it. How do you know he created it?
Because it's been revealed in the Word of God, in the Bible.
How do you know that? How do you know that the Bible is the Word of God?
Because it says it is.
Is that the reason, Jeff?
I believe the testimony of Jesus Christ as it's recorded in the Bible.
Sure. So what you're saying is that you're convinced of this, and I already know you're convinced of it. I used to be convinced of it too. What I'm asking is, why are you convinced of it?
I'm convinced of it for a number of reasons, Matt. One of the primary
Can you give me one?
is the main reason that I'm a Christian is I believe in love. First of all, I believe
okay,
that
so
love.
So wait, hang on. No, hang on, Jeff, hang on. Can you not hear me, Jeff?
I can hear you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, so you believe in Christianity because you believe in love.
I believe in God.
No, you said you believed in Christianity because you believe in love, right?
I believe that Christianity is true, yes.
And
Holy
holy shit, Jeff, can you be honest at all? You just said, the words came out of your mouth, one of the primary reasons why you believe in Christianity is because you believe in love.
Yes, sir.
That's what you said, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think other people believe in love who don't believe in Christianity?
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Why is it that because you believe in love, you believe in Christianity, when other people might believe in love and not believe in Christianity? What is the distinguishing characteristic that leads you from, I believe in love, therefore Christianity is true and real?
I can't really speak as to why people do not.
I didn't ask that. I said,
okay.
How do you get from I believe in love to therefore I believe Christianity? What is it about believing in love that necessarily should lead someone to believe Christianity?
Well, I experience love between myself and others, and I give love to other people, and I've received the love that God has shown and expressed towards me.
No.
My experience in life of
Jeff,
all of the
Jeff,
love.
Jeff,
Go ahead. Yes, sir.
I'm asking,
Okay.
you and I both believe in love. That may not necessarily be true. We'd probably have to talk about defining love. But let's just say, for example, you and I do.
Okay.
When I asked you, how do you get from I believe in love to therefore I believe in Christianity? Your answer was, because I experience love and I give love to other people, which has nothing to do with Christianity. And then you went to...
Wait a minute. If I give love and experience love, and you're saying it has nothing to do with Christianity when I get my instruction from God to love Him, to love others...
How do you know...
No.
What do you
mean it has nothing to do with Christianity?
You have not demonstrated that love is because of Christianity.
Well, are you familiar with the command to love God, to love your neighbor as yourself, and even to love your enemies?
Do you really think Jeff, do you think for 1 second that I'm not familiar with that?
No, I'm just saying that
okay, that is in the Bible.
Yes.
And it says that. Now,
yes.
That doesn't mean that you've established a connection to the truth of Christianity, because there are plenty of other books that might encourage someone to love people too, right?
That's true. Yeah, there's other people that might say that. But the point that I'm saying is, here I am out here in this world. I'm looking around. I'm looking at Islam. I'm looking at Buddhism. I'm looking at, all of the other various iterations of the religion out here. And I'm saying to myself, hey, in my experience, love is the bomb. I love it. I dig it. I love being loved, and I love giving love. Yep. And on top of that, I believe that God has demonstrated His own love for us.
Why? Why do you believe that?
Well, like I said, the testimony of Jesus Christ is the evidence for that. Fact that He came and manifested Himself in this.
How do you know that?
Environment.
How do you know that?
Because I know that because of the testimony, man.
What testimony?
I know that you're very well aware of the testimony.
No,
the Bible,
okay. And so now we're back to the question. Now we're back to the question I asked you about 10 minutes ago, which is, why do you believe the Bible?
Because it jives with my experience in life. What I'm reading in the Bible,
okay.
I'm experiencing out here when I interact with
people. What about the Bible jives with your experience of life? Its promotion of slavery, its idea of eternal punishment, the idea of blood sacrifices.
How about the soul that sins will die? How about the death?
How about the what?
All around.
How about the what?
The soul that sins will die.
What? Yes. Okay, please, Jeff.
Jive with your life.
Jeff.
I'm backing up. I'm listening.
You're not listening if you're talking. The soul that sins will die. Please demonstrate that there's any such thing as a soul, or that it could die.
Okay, we demonstrate. I don't demonstrate it. I observe it. It's
okay, how do you observe a soul? You'll be the first one. You'll get a Nobel Prize. How do you deserve a soul? Enlighten us.
What I observe is bodies walking around that are alive. Okay.
Yeah.
And when those bodies die, according to the scriptures,
I don't give a shit about according to the scriptures, Jeff. That's not proof.
I understand that. I understand you don't care about that, but this is how I know these things.
Well, that's not a way to knowledge. I'm sorry, but you have not expressed any pathway to knowledge. You're just saying, I believe this because I believe this. And I want to know what the justification is. You say you believe in Christianity because you believe in love, but there's no necessary tie where love is exclusive to Christianity. You believe because a soul that sins will die, when you can't demonstrate that there's any such thing as a soul, or justify the concept of sin, or demonstrate that a soul could actually die. All you keep doing is pointing back to a book. And when I've asked you why you believe the book, you cannot offer things and then point back to the book as the justification for them. That is, by definition, a circular argument fallacy. Do you not care about reason?
I do. I do.
I
care
doubt
about
it.
it.
I doubt it.
I'm saying, okay, that's fine. But what I'm saying is the book makes a certain declaration, and I'm saying that I'm observing this in reality in life.
And I've asked you how you've observed this in reality.
Is that not a scientific principle?
No, it's not remotely a scientific principle that you read something in a book and then you think you've observed it in reality. That's not a scientific principle. Scientific principle would be to test for the existence of a soul, to try to find a way to do this. And you know what? We can't.
When have you observed a soul that sins dying in real life?
Okay, when I say when the Bible says a soul, what I'm saying is a human being as we observe them.
That's not a soul.
You and I, well, according to you, you're saying that it's not a soul.
Well, some people say that poor soul, and they mean person. I don't know if the Bible means.
You're not going to get to God by using figures of speech.
This is how we communicate. We use figures of speech.
That's not how we get to the truth of the matter. I want to know, is this true? I don't care that somebody believes it. I don't care that it's in a book. I don't care that they think they might have interpreted a book in such a way that it might be consistent with something that they've metaphorically interpreted out of reality. I care about whether or not it's true. Why don't you?
I do care.
Okay.
Absolutely, I care.
If you cared about whether or not it was true, you would find a way to test to make sure that what you believe is actually true.
I'm purporting that I am asserting that I have tested in. What is my test?
How? What have you tested?
I've experienced love. I've given love.
Goodbye, Jeff. Okay, let's take a step back. And I'll let John jump in on the next, because I'm clearly not in the mood to deal with someone who claims that they test, and their test is, I've experienced love.
I've experienced love too.
Me too, at least in some sense.
Well, the assumption seems to be that love can only come from God, just like the assumption is that trees can only come from God, therefore God. Love exists, therefore God. But you haven't demonstrated the premise that love can only come from a God. That's the way I look at it.
I've been, what have I been doing this show 11 years or so. We've had everything. We've had Look at the Trees. We've had God is Love. I Feel Love, which, by the way, the Blue Man Group with Venus Hum version of I Feel Love is the best version ever. So maybe Annette is God. I mean, she's got a godlike voice. When I listen to Annette from Venus Hum, it seems godlike, angelic. Is that enough? When we're talking about whether or not something is real, the first thing we have to do is define it clearly and make sure we're not just talking about metaphors. Oh, the soul that sins dies. Well, first of all, even within Christianity, which I didn't really get to, your soul doesn't die. The body dies, but the soul doesn't die. The soul goes on to some afterlife. It may be annihilated under some models and not enter a hell or a paradise. But that is the claim. That is not the evidence for the claim. And when I ask how you've observed a soul or can demonstrate a soul or demonstrate that a soul dies, you just talk about, oh, well, I've experienced love. Well, I'm genuinely happy for you that you experienced love, because a lot of people who are not experiencing a great deal of love, who don't have good relationships with other people. But when you start saying, I've experienced love and I've experienced God's love, whoa. How did you determine that it's God's love? Oh, well, it's consistent with the book. There's sort of this fuzzy thinking, and I get it. I was as much a victim to it as anybody else, which is I've been surrounded by all sorts of people, and we speak a jargon. We're in church. We feel the presence of the Holy Spirit, and nobody questions it. Nobody asks, what the hell do we mean by feeling the presence of the Holy Spirit? Is it goosebumps and elations? An elated feeling? Oh, well, we feel God's love, or we see God working in our life. Do we? how do you identify that? Because quite frankly, and I think Jeff's call demonstrates it very clearly, I have yet to see anything beyond this is the way I feel about it. It's as warm and fuzzy and wooey as any pseudoscientific claptrap that's out there. Oh, well, I feel God working in my life. Well, how do you determine that it's God? There's never any sort of rational or concrete demonstration that ties there is a God and I feel this. It's always I feel this and I'm going to attribute it to a God, and I'm not going to offer any justification beyond my own personal impression or the fact that my personal impression is consistent with my personal interpretation of this ancient holy text, which, by the way, could apply to any holy text, and including some unholy texts.
Yeah, it's not just feeling the presence of God, it's feeling the presence of God, therefore Christianity.
Yeah.
That's another giant leap.
This jump from love. It's just, first of all, maybe it probably would have been better to sit down and define what you mean by love. Because it may be that what you're experiencing is wholly different from anybody else's. And I mean wholly with a W there. But anyway, there we go. Doug, thanks for waiting in Illinois. Hey, and it seems here on the note that you're prepared to do what the last caller wouldn't, which is demonstrate that a soul exists.
Right.
Cool. Well, maybe between the two of you, you can find a way to correct me.
Yeah, I was once an evangelical atheist like you and was actually a really big fan of the program for a while and just recently decided to go back after coming back to theism.
Okay, so
and I've noticed that a lot of your...
I have a question just for clarity, and then I'll let you get it. So what you're saying is you say you were an evangelical atheist just like me.
Basically door to door. I used to if I saw someone reading a Bible on the street and stuff, I would try and spark up a conversation and try and convince them that their faith was not reasonable.
Yeah,
so
I don't do that. We take incoming calls.
You host a radio program that's targeted at believers, though, right?
No, I host a radio program, and I host a program.
Mm-hmm.
This is a TV
where
program.
People call in. I don't go door to door. There's a difference. People who want to have the conversation. But the question is, when you say you're just like me, before you get to the reason why you went back or became a theist of some stripe, why were you an atheist?
To be honest, it was because of Catholic school and all of the.
Okay, then you were nothing like me. Then Doug, you don't get to say you were like me. Okay.
Can I explain why I said that?
Okay.
Because on the atheistexperience.com, it says that you host a radio program targeted at believers. So you are, in some sense, trying to evangelize, right?
Yes, I didn't deny being evangelical. I'm trying
I said exactly.
Doug, stop. When you say just like me, let me explain why this is the case. This is important.
You're going to take this way literally, aren't you?
Yes.
I mean, come
yes.
on.
Doug, can you shut up for 1 second so I can explain why this is important? If you don't think it's important and you're worried about somebody taking something literally, you called the wrong fucking show.
All right.
Okay, and the reason this is important is this. The reason this is important is this. I frequently hear from theists who stop being theists and are atheists. And in some cases, they have very good reasons, and in some cases, they have bad reasons. On occasion, someone will point to some individual and say, this person was an atheist just like you, and now they're a theist. And every single time I have talked to that person about why they were an atheist, they were nothing like me. They had no good reason. And when I asked them what changed their mind to become a theist, they also have no good reason. They weren't skeptics. They weren't atheists because they were skeptics. They didn't have an understanding of the nature of evidence and the burden of proof. And this is why I asked this question at the outset, because if you call in and say, I used to be an evangelical atheist just like you, and now I'm a theist, I need to know, first of all, what the hell do you mean by just like me? And as it turns out, all of the things that you listed that were just like me are nothing like me. Now does it make sense why I was asking about that?
Can you tell her I'm in the bathroom? Okay, so real quick, that's fine. I want to apologize. I didn't choose my words carefully.
So what changed your mind?
Just like you.
So what changed your mind?
looking at the evidence changed my mind, and I'm willing to like put that forth to you. But first, I want to demonstrate the soul.
Okay.
Okay.
To demonstrate to explain the material, we usually use inductive methods like observation, but the soul is an immaterial
How do you know?
reality. So we have to use deductive methods, and we know by using these deductive methods. So when you put on a shirt, your shirt takes on the shape of a chest, but it's not a chest. Your skin is stretched over the bones, shaping it like a chest, but that's not a chest either. It takes a whole mess of parts to make an actual human body, but none of that human body is the person underneath. You can remove multiple parts of a human body and they still remain that same human, but that's due to the soul underneath using a deductive method.
Doug, how do you know that?
Induct. I just told you.
You just told us that it's due to the soul underneath.
How do you know it's not due to the brain?
Underneath, animating the body.
How do you know it's not due to the brain?
How do you know that it is due to the brain? Has it ever been demonstrated that the brain produces consciousness?
Well, you're the one making the claim that it's due to the soul.
I tell you what, the brain is wholly consistent with the production of consciousness, which you can demonstrate by actually investigating flawed brains and dead brains and showing which ones are conscious and how consciousness changes. But hang on, that's not what you were actually talking about. You were talking about the shirt taking on the shape of the chest, but the chest isn't the skin and all this stuff. What you're actually talking about there is an abstract concept label. The label chest is something that we use in different ways to point to this collection of things. And it has, you have to, if you're going to say that there is a chest.
And the soul,
Doug, can I finish a sentence? Doug, if you're going to say, holy shit. If you're going to say that the chest is because of a soul, you have to demonstrate that, not just assert it.
See, hello?
Hello, you're on the air.
Sorry, it sounded like it got disconnected.
No, you got put on hold because you wouldn't shut up.
Oh, okay, that's fine. My bad. So, so I mean, what do you want to know? I'm talking, when I say the soul, I mean the consciousness underneath.
Okay.
And I don't think that that's produced by the brain. Because I don't think that that's ever been demonstrated scientifically, and you guys call yourselves evidentialists. So I'd like to see some evidence of that. I can show you some evidence to the contrary, though, if you'd like.
So first of all, I'd love evidence to the contrary, but here's the thing.
Okay.
Saying that there's a chest because there's a soul is an assertion that you haven't justified in any way, and your position, you better let me finish. I swear to God, this call will end.
Sorry.
Your position, after saying that, is to go back to this idea. What the hell is going on in the background? Are you having a fist?
I just want to know. I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to be rude.
Okay. Here's the thing. Maybe we don't have any explanation for consciousness. The assumption is that consciousness is at least a product of the brain because there's a correlation between a functioning brain and aspects of consciousness. But the fact that we don't have an explanation for consciousness, or that consciousness hasn't been identified and completely described, does not in any way mean that there's something supernatural about it, or that you have identified it. And when I ask about the existence of the soul, and your response is to say, well, you haven't proved that consciousness isn't supernatural, that is a dishonest shifting of the burden of proof. Because I didn't assert that the consciousness was not supernatural. Science doesn't say consciousness isn't supernatural. Science says we can't explore or confirm the supernatural, so we can't make pronouncements about it. All we can do is talk about the natural world. So science and me are not claiming there is no supernatural, and they're not claiming the soul is not supernatural. We're simply acknowledging that the natural world is all we can investigate, and not only is there no reason to assume that there's something supernatural about it, there's no pathway to demonstrate that there's something supernatural about it. And by the way, consciousness is not identical to the soul. And so the number of mistakes that you made in that little pathway is staggering. Because at the end of the day, your claim is, well, you guys haven't proved it's not supernatural. Okay, so what? That is a shifting of the burden of proof.
Well, if he is saying that he's defining soul as just the consciousness that we kind of agree that we all have, then the problem is he hasn't demonstrated that that has any origin outside the human body. He's just asserting that it must be, although maybe he was getting to that. I don't know.
Possibly. The pots and pans clanking or whatever the hell was going on in the background there was beyond. But so the thing is, when you say, hey, I was an atheist just like you. No, you weren't. Okay? I'm an atheist because I understand, first of all, that science doesn't have a pathway to confirming the existence of the supernatural, can't investigate it with regard to its existence or with regard to its ability to cause things in reality. We have no mechanism. There's no... as soon as somebody comes up with a way to test for the supernatural and confirm that they're talking about the supernatural, they're detecting it, and then they can begin to talk about whether or not it can interact with the material world. But the soul is the most, I've said before, the most dead concept in all of theology. And it's in part because of what we know about brains. We know that damage to my brain can drastically change my memory, my preferences, my personality, everything that makes me me, and all of those aspects that we identify traditionally with a soul. So when that happens, if I suffer severe brain damage to the point that my personality is reset, does that mean that there's a soul that is hampered from effectively moving and communicating with this body? Be careful, because that's the most tempting explanation. The most tempting explanation is that there's a soul, a ghost in the machine, and it uses your brain to enact its will, to exert its influence on reality. But if your answer, once my brain becomes damaged and my personality shifts, there's a number of different options. Either that damage to my brain was also damage to my soul, and so the brain is still reflecting accurately my personality, but my personality is fundamentally changed. That opens a whole host of problems. You get if the soul and the characteristics of a personality, if the soul contains the memories and characteristics of a personality, then when the brain is damaged, why is the soul damaged? It's immaterial. So now you've got a disconnection between damage to something material and damage to something you're claiming is immaterial. That you have to explain that disconnect. If they're both damaged, then someone who is saved becomes unsaved, or someone who is unsaved becomes saved, someone who is a believer becomes a non-believer. How is the idea of a self and continuity established? If I've been a Bible-believing Christian for a bunch of years and I suffer brain damage to the point where now I'm a damned atheist, if that damage exists within my soul as well, then a physical damage to my brain, which had nothing to do with any choice of mine, has now damned my soul to hell. So the most common fallback position is that the brain is damaged, but the soul is not. The soul is still what it was. It just can't use the brain effectively. But here's the problem. That means there's a bag of meat that is running around acting and looking by all perception as a real human being, and it's dragging around a soul that is a completely different person, which shows that the physical meat can produce an entity that you would identify as a person, a souled person, even though it's not actually that soul. This entire discussion about souls, not only can you not demonstrate it, but it is flat, bizarrely wrong. Because there's no solution to any of these problems. We don't know everything about the brain, but we know too much about the brain to believe that there's something that makes me me that has any hope of escaping my body. Not only that, but I'm not the same person I was 2 years ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago, both physically and mentally.
Well, and people have tried to test this scientifically over the years. People have tried to weigh a human body right before and right after death, and thought maybe they found a slight difference, but it's not repeatable. And then if you say, like he said, well, it's immaterial. You couldn't measure it. How do you know that? How do you know it's immaterial?
Yeah.
Are you just saying it's immaterial because we can't measure it? That's a circular argument again. So
yeah. That thing about weighing it too. Let's say that we found that at the moment of death, when people claim that a soul leaves the body, that there was some discernible weight that was consistent of leaving the body. How did you determine that that's actually a soul? And as John was pointing out, if the soul's immaterial, then how does it have weight? Turns out it doesn't have weight. No reason to think it exists. But this bizarre claim that, well, I used to be an atheist like you, but now I'm a theist, and it's because I don't understand evidence and the burden of proof, and I bought into this notion of a soul based on some abstract philosophy about identity. Oh, well, your shirt takes the shape of a chest, and the chest is skin, but it's not just skin, it's the bones underneath, and all of that is because there's a soul. No, that doesn't mean that there's a chest soul. You don't take the abstract concept and infer from it a non-physical, immaterial soul as an extant thing, and then you definitely don't get to claim that you're doing deductive reasoning. But
I think if you don't understand reasoning and the burden of proof when you're a theist, you probably didn't when you were an atheist either, and you had some other reason, like Matt said, for not believing that maybe wasn't based on reason and skepticism.
So Doug is called back. So I don't know how much of that you heard, Doug.
A little bit. I basically just called back to apologize because I'm a bit of a talker and I wasn't really trying to interrupt or be rude. So I am sorry about that.
I'm a bit of a talker too, and sometimes we have issues on the phone. But one of the things is, if you're going to say you've got evidence for something, and we have problems with definitions, we have problems with what you're saying, and you go to this idea of an abstract label for something like a chest, and then slide in this completely unfounded assertion that it's because of a soul, you've got to justify that, and we're going to call it out.
Can I justify it further?
Sure.
So you had a really nice conversation about love earlier and like the experience of love, but you can't like grab love and put it in a jar, basically. Like it's an immaterial reality that you can deduce through the experience.
So
that's basically the same thing as a soul.
I agree that, okay, if you're saying love is the same thing as a soul, I don't think love exists as an extant thing. Love is the label that we put on a number of feelings and interactions. We can identify aspects of love, but love doesn't exist as a thing.
Are you saying that definitively? Like, do you know that to be the truth, or is that like just assertion?
Okay, so
can you demonstrate specifically that there's love and no God? Like, I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to conflate the two, but I'm saying that's what I'm getting at, or getting from that.
So I don't have. Fuck it. Can I finish? I don't have any reason to think that love is an extant thing, because all of the examples that we have of love and all the things that we identify as love don't show any of the signs of being some thing that exists absent us.
Because it's immaterial.
Oh, okay. How do you know that? If you just mean that it's not material, then I agree with you. It's not material.
Right. Is happiness a material like object?
No.
Right. And so is like God a material reality?
Nope.
Or is God the creator of the material reality?
Why is that an or? Why do you create an or situation without demonstrating that those are in fact the two possibilities?
The cause of all nature is going to be by definition super or beyond nature. So like it's going to be immaterial as the creator of all material. Just like love and immaterial reality has.
I don't see that there is I don't have any reason to believe that there is a creator at all.
There is a creation though, isn't there?
No. Well, there are things that have been created. I created stuff and I created my stuff in my workshop just this week. But when you're talking about the entirety of the cosmos and trying to claim that it's a creation and that there's a creator, that's something you have to demonstrate. You don't get to just claim.
It's here, isn't it?
Yes.
We can demonstrate that it's a creation based on like a number of things, like
no, you can't.
Complexity and like.
No, you can't.
Absolutely can't.
Just because something's here doesn't mean that it was created by.
How do you demonstrate that the universe was created?
Because it's here.
You're gone. Because it's here is not a demonstration. That is not how you go about demonstrating something. That is kindergarten philosophy and theology of because I said so. I mean, it's here. It had to have been created. No. doesn't have to have been created. And if it did have a beginning, that doesn't mean the beginning was necessarily caused by a thinking agent that you could identify as a god. You just don't understand the limits of exploration of the supernatural. And what you think you can do is make inferences about, oh, there's a universe, so it must have been created. No. And when I ask you to demonstrate this, if your answer is because it's here, then you fundamentally don't have the first clue about how to demonstrate the truth of something, and the conversation's a waste of time. Let's see if we can get an atheist on here. Hey, Kris, how you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. How about you?
I've been better. Thanks for waiting.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I really love your show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to actually. I bet you that I have better evidence for the supernatural than anyone else, and yet it's not, and I'm an atheist. So I wanted to ask you guys about an experience that I had that I used to think was a miracle, and I was on the fence about whether or not I believed in a God for like 9 years because I totally thought this was supernatural, when it actually just turned out to be a phenomenon because I actually looked into it.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of this phenomenon where when you look into a foggy mirror, like let's say that you've just gotten out of the bathtub after you've taken a shower, and in the reflection in the mirror, your eyes are glowing? Because this is a thing that actually happens, and I didn't realize this.
Yeah, neither of us have heard about it.
I'm going to try it though next time.
I just got out of the shower right before I came to the show. It didn't happen, and I don't recall it ever happening. But that doesn't mean that other people don't experience this.
Right. And the thing is that it happened to me when I was at a religious convocation. And so that was back when I was religious. And so I was confident that that was God trying to speak to me. And it looks really incredible, too.
That is cool. And I can certainly see why somebody would make a connection between, hey, the only time I've experienced this was in a religious environment. I think similar things probably account for a lot of reasons people believe. The funny thing is, and maybe I'm just too, I don't know what the correct word is, perhaps nitpicky. Man, if I ever stepped out and looked in the mirror and saw my eyes glowing, even if I might have been suspicious that it was only happening while I was at a religious conference, not only could I never go anywhere near the idea that this is God, but the first thing it would make me think of is when you say that you thought it was God trying to tell you something, what the hell kind of a prankster God can't just give you a message and instead decides to make your eyes glow only when you're looking in a mirror that's fogged up by water where there could be all kinds of optical reasons that you're not aware of? I mean, this is the God that's just running around fucking with people.
Right, exactly. And here's the thing. After 9 years, I got married, and my husband told me, if you really care about the truth, if you really care about finding out what's real, then research it. And I was like, oh my God, you're right. I should research it. Because I identified as agnostic at that point.
Yeah.
And so I looked it up, and sure enough, there's a handful of forums online. They're only in like paranormal sightings forums, unfortunately, but they're like these people who experience the same thing, but they say it only happens very rarely. And one of those people said that they were some college student going into science, and they had a science teacher who they talked about this experience with, and they concluded that it most commonly happens in hotel bathrooms, which I thought was really weird.
Do hotels, perhaps for efficiency, use some special type of light bulb?
It might be the lighting. They talked about very specific lighting, things that were similar to my experience. They talked about the lighting being overhead and or behind you. A lot of people have experienced it with like kind of ambient lighting from like outside and stuff, but why they suggested it often happens in hotel rooms is because people clean the mirrors regularly. But it's probably some kind of light play, like and so I still have no idea how it works, and that's only a hypothesis, but it does match what I experienced, and that's actually what drew me to actually accepting that I was an atheist. Was reading about that and reading what other people had experienced, because I actually decided to look into this phenomenon.
Yeah, and there's two different pathways. One is that there is, in fact, that your brain's interpretation of what you think you're seeing is accurate. That there's some optical thing where the light entering your eye actually makes it appear that your eyes are glowing. There's another one entirely, which is that this isn't something that's related to your eyes at all, but your brain's interpretation of things. And I wonder, when people say if it happens more in hotels, one of the things about being in a hotel versus being in your home bathroom is when I don't know about anybody else, but when I get out of the shower in my own bathroom, I already know everything about that room. I'm completely familiar with that room. I know, when I see this little weird shape over here, that this is a reflection of, the top of the toilet seat or these other little things. So when the mirror's foggy, my brain is more likely to accurately map the reflection that would be there if there was no fog, because that's the bathroom I'm familiar with. Whereas in a hotel, my brain has to do extra work and try to figure out what the reflection should be in a bathroom that I'm unfamiliar with. And so I wonder if there's anything optical at all. It may just be, a mind illusion.
I suppose that's possible. I can't rule that out, but I mean, I'm saying this is not like, I think I see lights in my eyes. Like I saw like spotlights from across the room. Like it is extremely noticeable if you ever do experience it.
Wow.
Which is why I'm inclined to think that it is an optical phenomenon and not so much of a brain thing. Although, I mean, sure, that could also be possible. One of the things I wanted to ask you folks about is recommendations on what I should do, because it really saddens me to see this kind of thing, this particular thing that I experienced that I got hung up on for 9 years, only be posted in paranormal sightings forums. And I feel like I don't have any weight to my argument to say, like, why to be skeptical about this and what to. I don't have any proof that this isn't
Right.
paranormal. And I don't, like, I see some of the people on these forums, they think, oh, do I have magical powers? And I want to tell them, no, you don't.
Except that you don't know that either. Maybe they do have magical
That's
powers.
true.
This is the frustrating
Yes, that's
thing. When you have something that is a mystery, if you have something where we don't know what the actual explanation is, then the best things to do is to say, oh, we need to investigate this further. But instead of questioning the experience, questioning their interpretation and their explanation for the experience. So this gets back to both of the previous callers.
Yeah.
John and I experience
Yes.
love, or at least we have some experience of it. We probably experience many of the things that Doug would have identified as a soul. It is not the experience that is necessarily wrong, although it could be. Could be that we have a shared experience that is flawed. But the interpretation of the experience and what conclusion you reach is the issue to address. So I can't tell you if somebody calls in and says, "Hey, God talks to me," or a couple weeks ago when the guy said that he gets messages from aliens all the time. I can't prove that he doesn't have that experience. All I can say is, are you reaching a justifiable conclusion based on what you've experienced?
Yeah.
And
I don't want the world to think that I'm crazy either when I say this, so it's kind of difficult to talk about. But,
you're
I
fine.
see what you mean.
You're fine. You probably don't have magical powers. But if it ever happens again, hopefully somebody else will be in the same vicinity, and you can bring them in and see if they also see the same thing standing in the same place that you're standing. You have to adjust for height and everything. There's ways to try to test, at least to figure out a beginning of it. But I don't know how you... I kind of want it to happen now.
Yeah, I think you just have to try. Have you experienced this more than just that one time?
No, there are some people who have, which I do not understand how that's possible because it seems like the rarest experience in the world and not very many people even know about it. But no, it's only happened to me the one time, and unfortunately when I was really superstitious.
There's so many
So
factors too. I mean, there's the factor of the light. How much fog? What's the mirror made out of?
yeah,
How much
exactly.
water or fluid is
Is
in
in the
your eye?
air, yeah, in your eye or in the
Exactly.
air.
There's like people have talked about like do you like what color eyes you have or
Yeah.
or like were you wearing contacts? I might have been wearing contacts, but I'm not sure. I don't remember. It was 9 years ago. Um, so there are tons of variables. Do you guys know who like is somebody I could contact or like I don't know like how on earth to spark a scientific investigation into a paranormal claim like this?
I don't think you're going to get a lot of traction to fund something that seems so rare. But there, you can
I
always
guess so.
contact, for example, a number of skeptic resources. You could write to Skeptic Magazine. You could visit the Skeptics Dictionary website.
True.
Any of the websites that like Straight Dope, where they actually go and investigate weird claims. Hell, they may have already done it.
Huh.
There may be information on there. But reach out there and just kind of explore a bit. But I don't know. I'm desperate to like pick up the phone and call CFI or somebody and get a hold of Joe Nickel and see what he knows about this. Hopefully, I'll run into if
Okay.
I run into Joe Nickel again, I will ask him what he's heard about this and what he knows. But other than that,
Oh my
I
gosh,
don't
that'd be
have
so
good. I
awesome.
don't have good.
It could be one of those things that's more common, that's really more common, but people just don't notice. You have to sort of catch it at a time where
Well,
it's going to catch your attention, and maybe most people maybe might be seeing it, but just it doesn't register, or they're not paying attention, or
well,
who
here's the
knows.
thing. I guess that's possible if you're not looking at the mirror. Like in some cases, it's some people say there is a variation, at least in the forums that I've read. They say there's a variation. Like some people say it's a fainter kind of a halo around the eye, and sometimes people have been calling it eye halos.
Hmm.
But for me, it was literally like I had flashlights in my eyes, and I was just you could see it from across the room. There was no mistaking it. And it's like when I spotted it because I was moving out of the shower and I saw these lights moving with my body, and I was like, "What the hell is that?" So it's I think there might be a variation in strength of the light depending on the experience, but for me, it was extremely noticeable.
And what I find amusing, and I'm not going to go down the comic book road too far, is how we're quick to leap to the supernatural for the unknown, rather than just that there
Hmm.
are things about nature that we don't yet understand and know enough about. Maybe you're a first generation mutant. Um, I
It's a
think that
pretty weak superpower.
I think that while I would say is probably incredibly unlikely, at least it's something we can explore more than it's supernatural. But I appreciate the call.
That's
Thanks so much for calling in, Chris.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Good luck.
I want to know if she tried saying Bloody Mary 3 times.
Oh, yeah. See, and I went and hung up on her before we got to ask that. By the way, after the show's over, a lot of folks involved in the show get together and go to Threadgills. They'll have the address up right there, but it's just like down 2 lights down and take a left if you were starting here. If you're not starting here, well, why not? Why didn't you come to the show? Like all of these people out here.
Some people don't know that. We get a lot of mail from people who say, "Oh, I want to meet you up at Threadgills," and they don't know that you can come watch the show. So
Yeah.
you can come watch the show. Just come on by. The address is
It's right there.
right there.
1507
backwards.
West Koenig Lane, Austin, Texas. Yeah, you can come down. The show starts 4:30. Get here probably no later than 4 to get a seat. There's a handful of seats out there. Let's go to Thomas. Thanks for waiting. Hello, Thomas?
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, thanks for waiting.
Hi. I was wondering. I hear you saying on the show a lot that the Bible is just a book and that it can't prove Christianity. Is that true?
So, what I would say is the Bible cannot be considered evidence for the supernatural because the Bible is the claim. You would need evidence for the claim.
Okay. Right. Well, I have heard you in the past say, "Well, it's just a book," but it's actually
So far as
it's
I
not
can
just
tell,
one book.
So far as I can tell, it's a collection of 66 books, depending on whether you get the Protestant
Right.
version or the Catholic
And
version. Yeah.
and it's this collection of 66 books. It was written over, centuries of time, and all these people are saying that this one, the one Yahweh God is the real one. So I would think that it would carry more weight than just being one book.
Right. I would agree 66 books would carry more weight than one, but you have to remember that, first of all, there are a lot more books. This is the collection of 66 books that people picked to be this collection, excluding others as well, because they fit the ideology that they wanted to promote. Right. They mapped the history. But at the end of the day, you have a bunch of books that make a bunch of different claims by authors that we can't often verify. We certainly can't ask them any questions or investigate. And while I see why people are attracted to this idea because it's been around for a number of years and so many people have believed it, the fact of the matter is that the truth is not impacted in any way by how many people believe something or how long they've believed it. That's completely separate. They could be right, but there needs to be some demonstration that they're right. To just assume that they're probably right because so many people believed for so long is not the way we go about determining whether or not something is rational.
Okay. That makes sense.
Because if that was the case, then I think we'd have to agree that we should just pick out what the oldest book is, because that's the thing. When you look at
the oldest. Isn't the Bible the oldest?
No.
But when you look at discussions between, for example, Jews and Muslims and everything else, the Muslims argue that their book has remained unchanged for its history. That they have, for example, the originals, which isn't quite true, but they certainly have closer access to the originals than we do for the Bible, both the New and Old Testament. So when you're making this decision, you decide, I'm going to believe some religion. Do you go for the one with the book that is best sourced to the original? In which case you'd probably have to go for Mormonism, maybe then Islam. Do you go for the one that has the longest history, for example, in print? In that case, you would be talking about elements of the Bible. But do you talk about the religions that were word of mouth, that were piecemeal? We go back to Confucianism ideologies, things that are just one step beyond animism and spiritism. And at the end of the day, what I think I would say is none of that matters, because all of them could be wrong, and we need a way to figure out which one of them might be right.
Okay. You said the Bible wasn't the oldest one. Which ones are older? I thought the Old Testament was the oldest one.
No, there are writings that predate the earliest writings of the Old Testament. Now, and some of them are religious. So when you get into this idea of which one's the oldest, quite often the claim is that it's the oldest because it chronicles the beginning of time. That they have they trace their history back to Adam, the first man, and so that this automatically makes them the oldest. And that the elements of history that were written about in some portions of the Old Testament predate other religions. But if you just look at the dates of the writings, there are writings that are older than the Bible. But what the Bible describes would be older than those. And at the end of the day, when we look at these, we have no way to determine how accurate they are. And when we see that they're wrong on some things, when we see that they are fundamentally wrong, especially on moral issues, we're talking about slavery or the place of women and things okay.
Moral issue. I thought, the Bible is I'd say it provides a moral compass.
Really? So you're okay? You're okay with slavery?
I'm okay with what? Sorry?
Slavery? Owning
Slavery?
people.
No.
Owning people. You
No.
think? Okay, so is owning people as property is immoral, correct?
Of course.
Then why does the Bible say it's okay?
I'm sorry?
Why does the Bible say that it's okay to own people as property?
It doesn't say that.
Well, yes, it does. Have you not read it? Have you actually read the Bible?
I do read it. Yeah, I
Like
go to
all
church
of
every
it?
Sunday. I read it every Sunday.
Have you read the whole thing or just the select portion?
No, well, no.
Okay, so
no,
if you haven't read the whole thing, and I have, and other people have, and you have one, I assume you have a Bible, right?
Yes.
So your Bible study homework for today is to read Exodus chapter 21. The whole chapter, one chapter. It'll take you 10, 15 minutes.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, and it's not the only place, by the way, that advocates slavery, allowing slavery, but it's definitely in there. The Bible's account of the Genesis story, people have had to take figuratively because literally it doesn't match up with what we know about how the universe began or how Earth began or how life on Earth began. What is it that you find? So at the end of the day, though, saying that the Bible, you find the Bible to be moral, at least the portions that you've read.
Well,
I'm okay with that.
I didn't know. I didn't know that that was in there.
Okay.
I'm gonna read it like you said.
So do you think the Bible advocates for this idea that we are fallen creatures that need to be saved?
I would say that we're all make mistakes. We're all sinners. That we need some sort of
For all have sinned and
saving,
fallen short of the glory of God. And so from your understanding of the Bible, we're all sinners in need of redemption, I assume, right?
Correct.
Okay. Why?
Because we make mistakes. We
Sure.
steal and we lie.
Sure, but if I make mistakes, if I wrong John, then I owe John an apology and I need to make amends to John. What difference does it make if I make amends to God for what I did to John? That doesn't fix anything.
Well,
are we born
Yeah.
are we born corrupt and destined to hell or annihilation?
I wouldn't say that.
You wouldn't.
No, because we're innocent as we're born. I mean,
Where did you get that idea?
Part. Well, I mean, I think it's obvious, right? I mean, when you're born, I mean, you're 2 months old. You obviously haven't done anything wrong.
I would agree.
I agree. The Bible doesn't agree.
The Bible doesn't agree, though. The Bible would hold that we are all born with the sin that spawned from Adam and Eve, the fall. And the sins of the father passed on to the fourth generation and the 10th generation and stuff like that, that there's no one good. No one is deserving of heaven, not even a 2-month-old infant. Now, what God does with infants is up to debate, which is why the Catholic Church has had a bunch of ideas, and they had limbo for a while, and then limbo went away, and all this other stuff. And churches have invented this idea of an age of responsibility. So let's say that you have, at what age do you actually become a sinner?
I would just say whenever you knowingly do something that you know to be wrong.
Okay. And so that's when you're in need of salvation.
Yeah.
What's required for salvation?
To make amends, to ask for forgiveness.
Ask God for forgiveness?
Well, ask God for forgiveness, but also, like you were saying, to the specific person that you.
Where does the Bible ever say I have to go back to the specific person, and that is a component of salvation?
I'm not sure exactly where it says it. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly where it says it. I don't know my Bible.
Neither am I.
Right now.
I've never heard that expressed as an element of salvation. Never. I mean, the very idea that one needs to make amends to the wronged parties is the sort of thing that I'm definitely in favor of. And in years of scouring through the Bible, I don't see that as an element. What I do see as an element of salvation from the Bible is that in some versions, salvation is a gift of God by grace, that it's something we're not deserving of. That it comes through faith in Jesus Christ, redemption, a turning away from sin, and an acceptance of living a Christ-like life, that those are the aspects that quite often are entailed or encompassed within this idea of salvation. So if, let's say, a 3-month-old hasn't done anything wrong and can't be held responsible, right?
Okay.
Like right now, I'm a sinner. If I die right now, according to what you believe, do I go to hell?
Well, I don't think so. I think
you don't think I go to hell?
Well, no, I think that it says that you will perish.
Okay.
That means you will not have eternal life. I don't think that you're necessarily going to hell. I mean,
Okay.
I don't think that's right.
So you and I are sitting here, and I'm not a Christian, and you are. And we both die at the same time, and your view is that I probably cease to exist, and that you get to go on, and that you get to go on to heaven.
Yeah.
Okay, is that a good thing? I mean, is it a good thing to be in heaven? Because I don't necessarily see that it is.
Why would you not see that it's a good thing?
Well, what's heaven like?
It's eternal life. You get everybody that accepts Jesus you get to live eternally. Isn't that
okay?
That
Get to live eternally doing what?
Whatever you want.
Whatever you want. Really, the Bible says that heaven is what you get to do whatever you want. Really?
Or I don't know. I don't know. I've never been there.
No, but you don't know what you believe about heaven, yet you want to go?
Well, I do feel it's a place of paradise. That's what the Bible says.
The Bible says paradise. Okay, even if it did say that, what's that mean?
Happiness. You get to see your loved ones.
What if your loved ones were annihilated?
Annihilated?
Yeah, like me. What if I was one of your loved ones? You won't get to see me again.
Yeah, I suppose not. But I mean, I guess.
You'd be happy with that?
Choice.
You'd be happy about that?
Well, no, I wouldn't be happy.
So if you're in heaven, and heaven is a guarantee of happiness, and you just acknowledge that you wouldn't be happy if your loved one wasn't there, then heaven can't be a place of just happiness, right?
Well, all my loved ones are Christians. So.
So fuck everybody else, right? Well, my mom's a Christian.
Well, okay, no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that, but
Well, I mean,
no.
what percentage? What percentage of people who have lived do you think are going to get to go to heaven?
Everyone who accepted Jesus. I mean, well, here, let me just one
Sure,
thing.
go ahead.
I think you think that when you die that you'll just cease to exist, correct?
Yeah, I don't have any reason to think that anything that is me continues.
Yeah, okay, so you get what you want. I mean, you're not going to.
That's not what I want.
Anyway.
He didn't say he wanted that. He said that's.
Well, no, I'm not saying that you wanted that, but I'm saying that's what you expect to happen. And
yeah,
and
but if there was a way to live forever and do what I wanted, I would want that.
Well, yeah, but I think you have to choose to accept Jesus.
Why?
To get that.
Why? And by the way, you haven't demonstrated that that's actually what I get.
What's what you get?
I get to live forever and do what I want. I don't know where you got that idea. I don't find it biblical at all. It's not part of, any version of Orthodox Christianity that I'm familiar with. I mean, most of them talk about that there's no sadness there and that you spend your time in praise. But I don't get this idea that, heaven is doing whatever you want and living forever. If heaven is doing what you want and living forever, I would like to do that. What do I need to do and why?
I just think you need to accept Jesus.
Okay, why?
I don't know. I mean, I believe in a Bible.
You haven't even read it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I don't know.
You find the parts of the Bible that you likable. Well, who doesn't do that? I have people who I despise aspects of their character, and yet the things that I like about them, I like. I like some things about Donald Trump. If I just cherry picked out the things of Donald Trump that I like, would that be fair for me to run around saying that Donald Trump's the best person ever because the things that I like about him are things that I like? And when people say, what about that crap about the wall or how he talks to women? And I say, oh, where did that happen? I've never read that in the Donald Trump book. I mean, how can you be advocating for something when you're really only okay with parts of it and then other parts that you seem to have invented?
I mean, that makes sense, I guess. I didn't know that the Bible said anything about slavery. I've certainly never seen anything in it like that. I don't know.
Well, set aside the issue of slavery. I mean, you seem to be okay with this idea that, for all have sinned and we're deserving of, hell or annihilation and that we need to be saved. That there's something about us that is flawed. And God's going to save some people. How does he go about determining who he's going to save? Why would believing in somebody? So let me try this another way, Thomas. Let's imagine you're God.
Okay.
Okay. And what is it that you want?
In general, or
well,
just
okay, you're roughly the equivalent of the God that you're talking about, and you have created a universe full of people. What do you want for those people?
I just want them to be happy and just live in harmony, live in peace, and just have a good time.
Okay,
I mean, that's what I would want if I was God.
Yeah, you'd be a pretty good God. I mean, maybe not in every aspect, but you created a bunch of people. You want them to live in peace and be happy.
Right.
If you're God, you can pretty much do anything, right?
Yeah.
So why didn't you create a bunch of people who live in peace and are happy? I mean, if your end result was that you wanted a whole bunch of people in heaven with you, why didn't you just create them in heaven to start with, instead of creating billions upon billions of people and annihilating most of them because they don't want to, blow you, and take the rest to heaven? I mean, why not just create them there to begin with?
I mean, I guess that makes sense. I get what you're saying. I don't know. I don't know, honestly. I don't know. I
mean, I'm writing a book right now called If I Were God, and there we address a lot of these questions. If I were God, why would I create anything? What would I create? How would I interact with my creation? What's my goal? What would I want? And it tries to look at, does anything in life make sense under these different models? And what I find, and I'm not knocking you at all for this, Thomas, because I think you are representative of quite a lot of people who identify as Christian. Most of the people I've run into who say they're Christians, they don't really know that much about Christianity. They know the bits and pieces, the feel-good pieces that they got at their church, and they seem to think that this is really good and it's some strong moral teaching, when there's not really strong moral teaching. I mean, we look at the Sermon on the Mount. What is it talking about? It's not this peaceful, let's have everybody love each other and be peaceful. It is, I'm going to bless these people, and all of you who feel downtrodden, you'll be lifted up. And when people come at you in my name, that means essentially you're doing the right thing. It's creating a victim mentality, which is why you get Christians running around claiming persecution. And at the end of the day, you have a God who makes the rules, makes the universe, and who has to sacrifice himself to serve as a loophole for rules that he created. If he wants to forgive people, why doesn't he just forgive them? And so it becomes clear that he doesn't really want to forgive them.
Well, he does. He does forgive us.
Really? Just without doing anything, he just forgives us?
If we repent, yeah.
Oh, if you repent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, even you have to feel remorse to be forgiven.
Why? Why couldn't God just forgive you anyway? Isn't that what forgiveness is? If somebody wrongs me and they make amends, I can forgive them. But if somebody wrongs me,
well, yeah, that's what I'm saying though. You have to. That's what I'm saying. You have to make amends.
But that's not what I'm saying, Thomas. I'm saying you don't have to. If somebody wrongs me, I can also just forgive them, even if they don't make amends, can't I?
You could, yeah.
Then why can't God? Am I more powerful than God?
No.
Am I able to do something that God isn't?
Are you able to do something? No.
Am I willing to do something that God isn't? That seems to be clear.
Sure.
Maybe.
Yeah,
you're willing.
And now, what I'm willing to do, isn't that better? Wouldn't it be better to forgive somebody even if they don't try to make amends than to withhold forgiveness until amends are taken? Or until amends are made?
Not necessarily.
I guess. I don't know.
I mean, in some situations, wouldn't it be morally superior to just forgive someone even if they don't make amends?
I'd say it would depend on the situation.
Sure, but some situation.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm more moral than God in some situations.
Well, I don't know. You have been kind of rethinking this. I didn't know. I don't know. I didn't know that the Bible said anything. I don't know. The slavery thing kind of pestering at me. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. John's probably. I mean, we have slightly different backgrounds, so he probably has a different take on this.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read much of the Bible at all, except some bits and pieces, but I don't necessarily agree that forgiving somebody without them making amends, I'm not thinking about a God here, but just in general, is always the moral thing to do. I think if somebody's wronged you, they may continue to wrong you if they don't have an understanding that what they did caused harm to you. So
yeah, no, I agree. This is something situational that, for example, a little kid kicks you in the leg, and you just kind of let it go.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Well, that's why
correction and amends.
That's why I said it was situational.
Yeah, me too.
It depends on the situation. Well, I don't know. Thanks for taking my call. I mean,
sure.
Yeah, I mean, you made some good points. So I'll think on it.
Read Exodus 21.
I'll do that. Thanks.
Or you can go to skepticsannotatedbible.com, and down at the bottom of the page, there'll be what does the Bible say about? There'll be a link there that says what does the Bible say about? And then it'll pull up a page of a whole bunch of topics, and there'll be one there for slavery. There'll be one there for, what are women's roles? How is the Bible on those issues?
Rape,
incest. What is biblical marriage? And why are
the Bible doesn't? Did you say rape?
Yeah.
forcing women to.
The Bible says that you should rape?
No, what it does is it forces women to marry their rapist.
That's not true.
It's not true? Would you like me to look up the verse before you hang up?
Yeah, sure. I don't have my Bible in front of me, so.
Well,
sure,
if you, you can. This shit's really easy. I just Googled women marry rapists. So Deuteronomy chapter 22, verses 28 and 29. If a man meets a virgin who is not betrothed, and he seizes her and lies with her, and they are found, then the man who lay with her shall give to the father of the young woman 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife because he has violated her. He may not divorce her for all his days. So if a man rapes a woman and they get caught, or even if they're just out having sex, but this is at least one take on rape would be included, then he has to pay 50 shekels to her dad because she's a woman who is property. He's violated her and made her unfit for him to sell off to other men for marriage. And now she becomes his wife and he can't divorce her. What about that is moral? Is it that women are viewed as property? Is it that women could be spoiled by someone having sex with them? Is it the father needs to be paid for his daughter? Is it that, hey, I can't get any women to marry me, so I'll just go ahead and rape somebody and then I'll be able to pay 50 shekels and she'll be my wife?
Well, no, I didn't know that was in there. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, and I would say the Bible, properly read, is probably the easiest way to find your way out of Christianity and Judaism. Because if you've bought into this idea that it is a moral guidebook, that is the good book, I had a challenge for years. Nobody ever takes me up on it. If you think the Bible is the good book, would you allow me to read Bible stories of my choosing to your children? And the only people who would ever say yes are people like you who don't know the bad parts. Now, the good news is I wouldn't actually do that because I respect people's children more than they do. I wouldn't send them off to Sunday school, and I wouldn't read them Song of Solomon or anything in the first 6 books of the Bible.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, okay, I understand. I didn't even know that was in there, so I guess thanks for making me a little more educated, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, sure. Just keep reading, keep thinking. Does any of this stuff actually make sense? Or is it more likely that you've constructed the religion that you'd kind of like to be true, that's kind of like maybe based on something that might be kind of biblical, and you're just going to run with it? The whole point is to care about whether or not it's true. And then if you find out that it is true, the second question is it good? Because it could be the case that we found out that there is a God and he's an immoral thug who just wants little playthings, in which case I would not be an atheist. I would believe that God exists, but there's no way I'd worship him. There's no way I'd go around promoting him. I would do everything in my power to stand in opposition to that God, even if he could squash me like a bug. And the funny thing is, if that God exists, I'm still here.
Yeah, well, thanks for taking my call. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your willingness to look at this stuff. A lot of people either don't care or they come up with some kind of justification because of their cognitive dissonance. And it sounds to me like you're
I don't know. I mean,
sounds to me like you're open to looking at this with a skeptical eye and at least considering other points of view. So I appreciate that. We don't get a lot of calls like you.
Thanks. I'm willing to look at anything. I mean, I don't just want to believe things, but that blindly. But I mean, I'm willing to look. So yeah, thanks for the call, guys.
Yeah,
sure.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, we've done like almost a full hour and a half, but I don't know.
We'll take one more, or
yeah, let's. I'll let you and I can talk to Cynthia here.
Hello, Cynthia.
Hi.
You're on.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure. What's up?
I am an atheist, and I have been an atheist for, over a decade now. I'm in my early 30s, and I've married an atheist, and I come from a very, very religious family, Pentecostalism, actually.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I grew up, strongly believing in everything, and started questioning when I hit high school, and actually found the annotated Bible website that you mentioned to your last caller. But anyway, I came out very openly at that time because I didn't realize that my family would object to it. I was just like, whoa, can you believe this? Whoa, look at all these discrepancies. Like, I just thought they would be just as amazed as I was. And as I was, expanding my mind and my thoughts on all of this, I thought they might as well. But they didn't. And they kept telling me, you're going to end up coming back. You're going to come back to the church. This is just a phase. And then as the years kept rolling by and I was more and more, firm with my lack of belief, our relationship sort of started deteriorating. I mean, they still absolutely loved me. and we still had a relationship, but a lot of our phone calls would end up in tears on their part, telling me I was going to hell, saying that they felt like horrible, parents or grandparents, whoever I was talking to. They felt awful because they had failed in some way of raising me to believe properly. Anyway, I ended up going back in the closet. It was a weird time. I wanted to make them feel better, so I actually started going to church, and I tried to become a Christian. And I told them this. I didn't want to let them down, and I tried to believe. But you really can't make yourself believe in something that you don't believe in. I can't just say, I believe in unicorns now, and so I'm going to pray to them. Anyway.
And one of the dangers in trying to believe something is that you will find ways quite often to set aside reasonable doubts. And so this is what basically Pascal's wager, what Blaise Pascal was talking about. He acknowledged you can't force yourself to believe something, but you should pretend that you believe in the hopes that eventually it will become real. So there is this practice of self-deception where you don't simply choose to believe something, but if you try desperately to believe something long enough, you may well find a way that you become convinced, and that's kind of dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Well, luckily that didn't happen to me. I absolutely am an atheist, and I don't see myself ever going the other direction. So like I said, I married an atheist, but we are out to his family, but we are not out to my family. They don't live near us, so it's not like we have to go to church or anything. But I don't want to break their hearts again. I don't want them to be miserable, and he's totally on board with it. We just look at, who's going to be more miserable, us going to church, a couple times a year just to make them happy, not pushing ourselves on them and just pretending, I guess. Well, the trouble is we now have a 1-year-old, and I do not want to raise her to see that we pretend to mommy's side of the family. And I just, I'm very torn because I don't want to hurt them, and I don't want them to feel like they've failed. But also, I don't want to raise my daughter to see that her parents pretend something. I want her to live an authentic life, and I want to show that example of an authentic life. So, I don't know. Do you have any words of wisdom, any thoughts on this?
Well, I think you've come to a good compromise, not seeing them very often. You might go to church with them a couple of times just for the sake of the family. I was going to say that might be the best solution for you guys. I think when your daughter reaches an age where she'd understand, you could explain that to her as well. You could say, we're going to church with the family because, we want to be together. We don't believe what they're saying in church. And I think she could understand that on that level. You're going to have much more of an influence on her than anyone else, including grandparents and other family members. So if you are only seeing them a couple of times a year, I think that might still be an okay compromise. At least I wouldn't feel like I was not having any integrity if I wasn't being dishonest.
Greta Christina has a book on coming out, which you can easily find on Amazon and other places. Coming out, I think it's Reasons Why and the Consequences and stuff like that. But she interviewed a bunch of people about their coming out process. And having done this show for a number of years, my answer's kind of changed on this. And that is, I want as many out atheists as I can, but I only want people to come out to the extent that they're comfortable with. You shouldn't have to turn your life upside down in order to make a statement. And what I tend to recommend is, rather than having some sort of sit-down coming out announcement as if it's a big deal, I think a much better solution is to just gradually start being yourself more and more. At some point, a question's going to come up, and I don't know your family, so I can't tell you what's going to happen, and you're going to have to do this by feel. But I think if I were to do it again, rather than have what happened to me, which was essentially being outed before I was ready to talk to my parents about it, I think I would rather have sat down with him at some point and when the conversation turned this way, just expressed it, yeah, I don't believe that. Rather than, oh, I'm an atheist and, I don't buy into religion and blah, blah, blah. You can have a discussion where you say, yeah, I don't actually believe that anymore. And, I didn't feel like it was necessary to raise this because I'm not trying to start an argument and I'm not trying to hurt somebody's feelings. I'm just not convinced of this. And it doesn't mean that, I don't like you as a person. I value our relationship enough that I didn't bring it up. It wasn't going to be a big deal. But now that, in my case, I'm probably even more strongly on this one issue, perhaps than you are. It's not just that I wouldn't want my kid to see that I was being dishonest about who I was. I also know that grandparents who are religious are eager as hell to get their grandkids involved in religion as early as possible. And
oh, yes.
I absolutely will not allow that. My kids, if they ever exist, will be permitted to explore and use their own mind and think up for themselves. And people can introduce them to religion once they're old enough to possibly evaluate things, to be able to tell the difference between what's real and what's not real. And you don't get to take my 2-year-old to Sunday school and fill him full of McDonald's cheeseburgers and fun songs in order to try to convince him that he is a terrible human being damned to hell unless he accepts Jesus. That shit just doesn't fly. And so even if I wasn't out, I would have to have come out to extended family, because there's going to be rules about the time you spend with kids. And I want my kids to be in your life, and I want you to be in my kids' life, and I'd like you to have a good relationship. And you can do all kinds of fun things. You can bake cookies and teach them crafts and go out to museums and explore the world, or just sit around and hug them and watch whatever you want to watch, but you're not going to indoctrinate them with religious stuff. And so if I wasn't already out, there would come a point with kids where I would just have to be, because now my responsibility to my kids is far stronger than my responsibility to not hurt my parents or my extended family's feelings. And I would find a way to communicate that so that they know I'm not trying to create a rift between us. I'm not trying to block you out. I'm not trying to, it's not that I look down on you. I'm not necessarily saying that you're stupid or evil or any of these other things. I just don't believe what you believe. And in the same way that you wanted to raise your kids your way, I'll be raising my kids my way. And this headbutting thing probably shouldn't happen at all. But the second it happens over religion, you lose, because I'm not going down that road. But my path is not the same as what I think everybody should take. So you've got to kind of feel out your family, figure out what you're comfortable with.
It depends a lot on how they want to be involved in, like Matt said, doing some kind of religious indoctrination or influence.
Yeah. On the other hand, I have, for example, family members who are raising their kids religiously, and I don't come in and tell them they're doing it wrong.
Exactly.
Instead, when they hang out with me, we do other stuff. And if religion comes up, I point them back, to their family. I always answer honestly. I told my brother from the beginning, we had a talk. You believe I don't. If my niece and nephew come up to me and say, hey, Uncle Matt, why don't you go to church? I'm going to tell them, I don't believe that. But people have different beliefs, and you can think for yourself and talk to your parents and blah, blah, blah. It's always more difficult as the family gets bigger, whether it's, just kids or more people that you care about.
Right. I think that it is going to be more and more difficult. My mother, her grandmother, is trying to spend more time with us, trying to visit more often. She's only an hour and a half away, so I am worried that our visits are going to become more and more frequent. She's already bought her little storybook Bibles and little, and my husband and I haven't really said anything because we don't really care. We're just going to, teach her everything.
Yep.
She can learn about all sorts of myths, and that's fine, but that's how we're going to present it as a myth. But I know that's not how my mom will present it to her. And it will break
there's some
her
good
heart.
books. There's Dale McGowan has some good books on secular parenting, and what you're talking about may be one of the best things. Where because there's also this potential backlash, and I'm sorry to interrupt at this point, we're running out of time.
Okay.
Where if the kid sees that you seem to be fearful of somebody's religion, there's a suspicion that goes along with that. And so it may be far better to just say, look, different people have different beliefs. Let's go explore them. This is what grandma believes. This is what somebody else believes. Here's what we believe. You get to decide what you believe, and giving them an education that empowers them to think for themselves and to be their own person. I can tell you this, I was indoctrinated as anybody could be from probably the minute I was born. And I turned out okay in the long run. It just takes longer for some of us to find our way out of it.
Right.
Even some fairly serious religious indoctrination isn't the end of the world, especially if you're in a situation like your child is, where they have parents who care and love them and are willing to teach them and talk to them openly and empower them. It doesn't have to be anything at all like the end of the world.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking my call.
Sure.
Well, thanks
Thank
for
you.
calling.
I appreciate it.
All right.
And that's it. I'm going to take one more call as kind of like an after show thing for fun. So Connie, you can hang on the line. This was Mother's Day. Nice to finish it off with a call from a mother.
Yeah.
That demonstrates a lot of the problems that take place. The conflict, by the way, isn't because of the atheists, and it's not you as somebody who used to be a believer and you're now not a believer. You are the one who has changed, and so you bear some responsibility for the change in the relationship. But that doesn't mean that it's your fault, and that doesn't mean that you get to be bullied by people. And if you want to maintain a relationship with somebody and they don't, that's their problem. And if the reason they don't is because their religion prohibits them, or their version of their religion prohibits them from actually caring about you and wanting you in their life just because you disagree on this religious issue, then not only does that say a lot about them, but it says a lot about the religion they buy into. Mm-hmm. And it's good to point that out as you leave and go on with the rest of your life. That's it for us. We'll have some folks over at Threadgills, 6416 North Lamar. And I won't be here next week. I'll be in, I'm going to 3 different CFI events, one in New York and Ohio and Pittsburgh. Wow. Doing 3 days of talking. But somebody will be here, and it will probably be more awesome anyway.
Hi, this is Russell Glasser, host of The Atheist Experience. You know, The Atheist Experience is made possible by volunteers and the generous support of viewers like you. If the promotion of positive atheist culture and separation of church and state are values that you hold, please consider contributing by becoming an ACA member or visiting our product page at evolvefish.com under the Partner tab. Thank you.